The desert was endless, a sea of golden sand stretching toward the horizon, shimmering under the twin suns. Every step Daniel took sank into the scorching dunes, the heat radiating up to sear his armored boots. The air was thick with dust, whipping against his face and stinging his eyes. Sweat rolled down his temples, cooling only momentarily before evaporating. His water supply was nearly gone, and the sun's relentless glare made every movement a battle against exhaustion. Daniel's squad had been ambushed days ago. He had been separated from the others in the chaos of blaster fire, and now, wandering alone, he had only his instincts to guide him. He had survived countless skirmishes, but this desert was a predator in itself. Unpredictable, merciless, and empty of mercy. Then a glimmer of color caught his eye, a faint shimmer against the sand, like a mirage, but moving or breathing. He squinted against the sun and saw a small figure, lying half buried in the dunes. At first, he thought it was another illusion of heat and light, but as he drew closer, the faint glow of iridescent skin confirmed it. It was real. She was breathtaking. Her skin radiated faint lavender and blue undertones, catching the sun like liquid crystal. Her hair, long and midnight black, streaked with silver, spilled across the sand, waving gently in the wind. Her eyes, large, luminous, a blend of emerald green and silver, fluttered weakly open, filled with both fear and desperation. Daniel froze, his chest tightening. He had seen death before. He had seen alien soldiers fall, comrades vanish. But this fragile figure abandoned in the desert, ignited a primal surge of protectiveness in him. Dropping to his knees, he brushed sand from her face. "Hey, can you hear me?" His voice was hoarse, cracked by thirst and sunburn, but it was enough to make her blink. Her fingers twitched, brushing against his hand, a silent plea that sent a jolt through him. Her breathing was shallow, ragged, each inhale sounding like it took all her remaining strength. Daniel carefully tipped water from his canteen to her lips. She drank slowly, trembling, her glow flickering faintly with life. The desert rumbled softly in the distance. Daniel's gaze shot up. Sand shifted unnaturally. A storm? Or predators drawn by the shimmer of her skin? Shadows stretched across the dunes. His hand instinctively went to his rifle, but he knew his ammo was low. Every moment counted. He improvised a small shade with parts of his survival gear, shielding her from the sun. He checked the cuts along her arms and legs. She had clearly been abandoned, left to die, exposed to blazing heat, venomous insects, or worse predators. Every instinct in Daniel screamed, "Keep her alive." He lifted her gently into his arms. She was surprisingly light, almost ethereal, yet her presence carried a silent urgency. "Don't leave me here." Carefully, he navigated toward a rocky outcrop he had spotted earlier. The uneven terrain forced him to move cautiously, the sand burning his boots and nearly swallowing his steps. She murmured softly, words melodic and alien, unintelligible to him, but clearly meant to communicate. Her trust was fragile, but it was there. Daniel felt a surge of determination. He had survived the desert alone, yes, but never with someone depending entirely on him. Finally, he reached a rocky outcrop, lowering her onto a shaded crevice where the sun's glare softened. She rested her head against the warm stone, her eyes closing briefly. Daniel scanned the horizon. The desert was quiet, for now, but he knew that relief would be brief. The twin suns began their descent, casting long, warm shadows over the dunes. Daniel realized the enormity of the moment. This alien, abandoned and left for dead, had survived long enough for him to find her. In saving her, he was entering a bond he did not yet understand, a bond formed in the crucible of life and death. He whispered gently, "You're safe for now. I've got you." Her fingers twitched again, a faint glow returning to her hands. Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. The desert was unforgiving, vast, and harsh, but he would not let it claim her. Not tonight, not ever. A soft gust of wind swept across the dunes, sending grains of sand swirling like miniature storms. Daniel shielded her face with his jacket as the air stung with grit. He realized this was only the beginning. The desert held more dangers than heat and sand. It was home to creatures, raiders, and a world that had already tried to take her life once. Above, the suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and violet. Daniel allowed himself a deep breath, letting the faint hope sink in. Tomorrow, they would face the desert together. And he knew, without fully understanding why, that this small act of saving her life would change both of their destinies forever. In that golden, scorching moment, a human and an alien formed an unspoken promise. They would survive together. The first stars began to twinkle above the desert, but the heat lingered in the sand and the rocks. Daniel had fashioned a crude sling from his survival gear to carry the alien woman, cradling her carefully against his chest. Every step sank into the scorching dunes, forcing him to slow his pace. Yet he refused to stop. She was alive because of him, and he would not let the desert claim her now. Her breathing was shallow but steadier than before. Occasionally, her glowing emerald and silver eyes fluttered open, and she studied him with a mix of confusion and faint trust. He caught her gaze and smiled gently. "You'll be safe. I promise." A faint shimmer on the horizon caught his attention. At first, he thought it was a mirage. But the closer he walked, the more he realized it was the shadow of a sand predator, its massive, scaly form moving swiftly across the dunes. The creature's sharp spines caught the light, gleaming like jagged knives. Daniel's pulse quickened. He knew the desert was alive with danger, and this was no ordinary threat. He adjusted his grip on the alien woman and ducked behind a ridge of sand, trying to assess the predator's path. "Stay down," he whispered. The wind carried the creature's low growls, vibrating through the sand and the rocks beneath their feet. Minutes passed, each second stretching into eternity. The creature circled, its glowing eyes scanning for movement. Daniel held his breath, feeling the alien woman's small hand press against his chest. The warmth of her touch reminded him that she was alive, and that the stakes were higher than just a survival. Finally, the predator moved on, disappearing behind a distant dune. Daniel exhaled, relief washing over him. He glanced down at her. "That was too close," he muttered. "You have no idea how dangerous this place is." She whispered something in her melodic language, and though he could not understand it, the tone was clear, gratitude and trust. Daniel smiled faintly. In this barren, hostile desert, the fragile bond between human and alien was growing stronger with every step. As they continued, the desert revealed more challenges. Sharp rocks cut his boots, sandstorms roared over distant ridges, and the air grew thin and hot. Yet Daniel pressed forward, finding brief shelter behind small rock formations and giving the alien woman sips of the remaining water in his canteen. Every time she touched his arm or glanced at him, he felt an unspoken connection forming, a recognition that they were both surviving against impossible odds. Hours later, a strange structure appeared on the horizon. At first, it looked like natural rock formations, but as they drew closer, he realized it was an ancient ruin, half buried in sand. Its walls were carved with alien symbols that glimmered faintly in the dying sunlight. It promised shade, shelter, and perhaps water. Daniel moved faster, careful not to stumble. The alien woman stirred faintly in his arms, her glowing eyes flickering with life as he approached the ruins. He set her down gently against a shaded crevice and scanned the area. The structure was deserted, for now, but he knew the desert rarely remained safe for long. As night fell, the stars shimmered with an almost unnatural brilliance. Daniel sat beside her, his back against the warm stone, and let himself relax slightly. The alien woman reached out a trembling hand, brushing against his arm. Though they could not speak the same language, the gesture was understood. She trusted him. Daniel's eyes scanned the endless dunes in the distance. Predators, storms, and perhaps worse human threats might follow. But for the first time in days, he allowed himself a sliver of hope. Together, they had survived the desert's first trials. Together, they might survive what came next. The alien woman's fingers glowed faintly in the moonlight, and Daniel felt a strange warmth spread through him. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was connection. This was the beginning of something neither of them fully understood, but both knew was important. Above them, the twin moons cast soft shadows over the sand, highlighting every line of her delicate face and the rugged determination on his. The desert was vast and merciless, yet in that small crevice, a human and an alien woman had found a fragile sanctuary, bound by trust, hope, and the promise that they would face the challenges ahead together. Night had fully settled over the desert, the twin moons casting a silver glow that made the dunes look almost liquid. Daniel adjusted the strap of the sling holding the alien woman against his chest, careful not to jostle her fragile frame. Her glow was faint now, a soft shimmering of lavender and blue undertones across her smooth skin. Though she appeared delicate, there was a quiet strength in the way her glowing eyes, emerald and silver, followed his every movement. The wind shifted, carrying with it a metallic scent. Daniel's instincts screamed danger. Across the dunes, shadows moved unnaturally, sliding along ridges like silent hunters. His pulse quickened. He crouched behind a small rise of sand, scanning the horizon. From the shadows, a pack of predators emerged. They were small but vicious, quadrupedal creatures with jagged spines along their backs that glimmered faintly under the moonlight. Their red eyes glowed like embers, scanning for weakness. Daniel's heart hammered. The desert itself was alive with dangers beyond heat and hunger. He dropped to the sand and gestured for the alien woman to stay low. Stay down. His voice carried over the wind, firm but calm. She shivered slightly, her fingers brushing his arm instinctively. The connection between them was growing, fragile, unspoken, yet unmistakable. The creatures hissed and lunged. Daniel swung a nearby branch, knocking one away, but two more closed in. He pressed himself between them and the alien woman, every reflex firing. Her glow intensified, and he noticed bioluminescent markings along her arms and shoulders pulsing softly, almost as if her body were warning him or preparing some innate defense. He realized then that she was not defenseless. She had latent power, but exhaustion and abandonment had left her weak. Without him, she would not survive. "Come on," he whispered urgently. He grabbed her hand and sprinted toward a jagged rock formation a few meters away. Sand flew beneath their feet, each step a battle. She stumbled once, and he caught her quickly, supporting her weight, once behind the rocks. He crouched, pressing her gently against a stone. The predators paused, hissing and circling. The alien woman's hands glowed more brightly now, and she murmured something in her melodic, alien language. The creatures hesitated, then retreated into the night. Daniel exhaled sharply. "You're stronger than you look," he said, almost laughing from relief. She met his gaze, her glowing eyes flickering with life and something unspoken. He realized that their survival depended not just on his strength, but on the alien woman's unique abilities and the bond forming between them. The desert was merciless. The wind whipped sand into their faces, sharp and blinding. The nights were freezing, while the days burned with unbearable heat. Daniel gave her sips from his dwindling water supply, shading her with whatever he could. Every time her fingers brushed his arm, he felt a spark of hope and trust. They moved cautiously through the night. Strange formations in the sand, trenches, pits, and half-buried rocks posed constant hazards. A sudden, deep sinkhole nearly swallowed them, forcing Daniel to catch her before she fell. She gasped, but her eyes shone faintly with gratitude. Above them, the moons reflected off the sand, illuminating a faint silhouette in the distance, a partially buried alien ruin. Its walls glimmered with strange symbols that pulsed faintly with an unknown energy. Daniel saw it as a potential sanctuary, offering shade and a chance to rest. He moved faster, careful not to stumble, keeping her weight balanced against his chest. Finally, they reached the ruins. Daniel set her down against a shaded alcove. She leaned back, exhausted, her glowing eyes fluttering closed. He scanned the surrounding desert carefully, knowing predators and storms were still lurking. He allowed himself a rare moment to breathe. In that moment, he realized something extraordinary. This alien, abandoned and left to die, had survived until he found her. And now, the bond between them had begun to deepen. A trust that had formed not from words, but from shared struggle, danger, and mutual reliance. Daniel whispered softly, "We've made it this far, and we'll make it farther. Together." She stirred slightly, her glowing fingers brushed his arm again, a gesture of trust, recognition, and perhaps hope. The desert was unforgiving. Yet in that small alcove, human and alien had created a fragile sanctuary, bound by their will survive and their growing reliance on each other. Above, the twin moons traced arcs across the sky. Daniel knew the desert held more threats: predators, hostile humans, environmental hazards. But he also knew they had survived the first night. Together, they had a chance, a slim, fragile chance, but one worth fighting for. And in that moment, Daniel felt the weight of something more than survival, the beginning of a bond that could change the fate of both humans and aliens. The morning sun rose slowly over the desert, painting the dunes in golden hues. Daniel helped the alien woman to her feet, supporting her fragile frame as they continued their trek toward the distant canyon he had spotted the night before. Her glow had faded with exhaustion, but every step she took was careful and deliberate, showing a hidden resilience beneath her delicate appearance. The desert was quiet, almost deceptively calm, but Daniel's instincts screamed that danger was never far away. He scanned the horizon, noting how the wind shifted the sand into strange patterns and shadows that seemed to move with a mind of their own. Every ridge of the dunes could hide predators, or worse, scavengers hunting in packs. As they climbed a small rise, a low rumble echoed through the desert. The wind picked up sharply, carrying with it a sharp, metallic scent. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Storm, or something worse," he muttered. Before he could react, a massive sandstorm erupted from the horizon, moving faster than any natural wind should. The sky turned an ominous orange, and sand whipped around them like a living entity. Daniel pulled the alien woman close, shielding her with his body as the first gust battered them. Through the storm, shapes began to move. Shadows, humanoid but distorted, skittered across the dunes, their glowing eyes catching in the flickering sunlight. Daniel recognized them immediately. Desert raiders, scavengers of both human and alien origin, drawn by the scent of the glowing alien woman. They were faster, smarter than normal desert predators, and now they had the advantage of cover. He whispered, "Stay close to me. Don't move too fast." She nodded weakly, her glowing hands brushing against his arm, a silent sign of trust. The raiders circled them, closing in. Daniel realized they couldn't outrun them. The storm would only slow him down. He had to fight. He picked up a broken piece of metal piping, a crude weapon, and prepared for the first strike. The alien woman's glow intensified, and faint bioluminescent patterns appeared along her arms, pulsing rhythmically. Daniel guessed it was some form of defense, some power she hadn't fully learned to control. As the raiders lunged, Daniel swung the metal, striking the closest one in the chest. Sand exploded into the air, and the raider hissed in pain. Another came at him, but the alien woman raised her hand. A wave of energy emanated from her palm, knocking two raiders backward. Daniel's jaw tightened. "You can fight," he exclaimed. She didn't answer in words, only a determined glow from her eyes. The energy pulsed again, stronger this time, sending another raider tumbling. Daniel realized her power was linked to her emotional state. Fear, trust, and determination amplify her abilities. They moved together as one, Daniel protecting her with his body and weapon, while she unleashed controlled bursts of energy to hold the raiders at bay. The storm grew worse, sand lashing against their faces, but they pressed forward, inching toward the canyon. Finally, they reached the canyon's entrance. The walls offered partial protection from the storm, and the raiders hesitated at the rocky threshold. Daniel and the alien woman ducked behind a boulder, catching their breath. Her glow dimmed slightly as she slumped against a rock, exhausted but alive. Daniel looked at her, feeling a swell of protectiveness. "We made it for now," he said, "but we need to find shelter quickly. That storm isn't letting up." She gave a faint nod, her eyes meeting his. In that glance, Daniel felt the unspoken bond solidify. She trusted him with her life, and he trusted her in return, even without fully understanding the extent of her abilities. As the wind howled around them and the sandstorm raged, Daniel scanned the canyon for signs of water, shade, or potential dangers hidden in the shadows. This desert was far from done testing them, and he knew the next hours would determine if they survived the day, or if the desert would claim them both. He adjusted the sling to carry her more securely and took a deep breath. We're going deeper. Stay close, he said. The alien woman's fingers brushed his arm once more, a quiet affirmation that she would follow him wherever he led. Above them, the storm raged like a living creature, but Daniel's resolve hardened. The desert was merciless, but together they were stronger. Whatever dangers lay ahead, human and alien would face them side by side. The canyon offered the promise of safety, but Daniel knew the true test had only just begun. The canyon offered temporary shelter from the storm, but Daniel knew they couldn't stay for long. The walls cast shadows that stretched unnaturally across the sand, and the air was thick with the scent of minerals and distant vegetation, a rare oasis hidden in the desert. He set the alien woman down gently, letting her rest against a rock. Her glow was faint, flickering like a dying ember, and he could see the exhaustion etched in every line of her delicate face. "We can't stop here for long," Daniel said, scanning the horizon to the canyon mouth. "The desert doesn't forgive rest." Her glowing eyes met his, reflecting trust and silent understanding. She lifted a hand, brushing against his arm, a gesture of reassurance. Then, a low rumble echoed through the canyon, vibrating the sand beneath their feet. Daniel froze. He recognized the sound, not wind, not distant predators, but something larger, more dangerous. His pulse quickened. From the dunes emerged a massive creature, unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. Its body was sleek and muscular, covered in scales that shimmered like molten bronze. For glowing eyes, each a different shade of amber, scanned the canyon as it stalked forward. Long, whip-like tendrils flicked from its back, slicing through the air with sharp precision. Its jaws snapped open, revealing rows of serrated teeth capable of tearing through metal. Daniel grabbed a rock and held it like a weapon, his eyes narrowing. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The alien woman's glow intensified, and he noticed the bioluminescent patterns along her arms pulsing faster, responding to the creature's presence. She rose slowly, her posture tentative but defiant. Daniel realized her power wasn't just reactive. It was linked to her emotions and intent. The creature advanced, moving with terrifying speed. Daniel lunged, throwing sand into its path to distract it, but it barely flinched. The alien woman raised her hand, and a pulse of energy radiated outward, striking the creature and forcing it to recoil slightly. Sparks of blue light danced across its scales, but it quickly regained composure, hissing and snarling. Daniel's heart pounded. "We can't keep this up for long. We need a plan." The alien woman's eyes met his, glowing brighter than before. She stepped forward, her energy pulsed stronger this time. Daniel noticed the intricate patterns along her arms and shoulders glowing in response to her determination. She wasn't just defending herself. She was learning to focus, to control the power that had saved them once before. He took a deep breath. "I'll distract it. You finish this." The creature lunged toward him, and Daniel rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a swipe of its tail. He jabbed with a broken branch, but it barely slowed the predator. Meanwhile, the alien woman raised both hands, concentrating. A bright wave of energy shot forward, striking the creature directly. It let out a roar, staggering back, then slumped to sand, temporarily stunned. Daniel ran to her side, pulling her back into the canyon's shadow. "That was incredible," he said, awe in his voice. "I didn't know you could do that." She exhaled, her glow fading slightly. I didn't either," she whispered in her melodic language, which he still couldn't understand. Yet her expression conveyed both pride and vulnerability. The storm had passed, and the desert seemed eerily quiet once more. Daniel and the alien woman settled against the rock, exhausted but alive. For the first time, he realized the true extent of her power, and how reliant they now were on each other. "Tomorrow," he said, adjusting the strap of his sling to carry her more securely, "we move deeper into the canyon. There might be water, shelter, or other dangers." Her hand brushed his arm again, glowing faintly, a silent promise that she would follow him wherever he led. Daniel smiled faintly. The bond between them had grown stronger with each threat, each shared heartbeat, each life or death moment. Above, the twin moons traced their arcs across the sky. The desert was merciless, but together they had survived. And Daniel knew that the challenges ahead would test not only their strength, but the connection they were forging, one built on trust, courage, and the unspoken understanding that their survival depended on each other. For now, the canyon offered temporary refuge, but Daniel's mind raced. The desert had many more secrets, many more threats, and he was determined to see them through, with her by his side. The morning sun cast long shadows across the canyon, the walls glowing faintly from the twin sun's rays. Daniel adjusted the strap of the sling holding the alien woman against his chest, scanning the dunes beyond for movement. The desert seemed calm, almost deceptively so, yet Daniel's instincts told him the calm was temporary. As they emerged from the canyon mouth, the sand shifted unnaturally. Faint, strange patterns appeared, long trails, nearly buried in dust, curving and intersecting like the tracks of a hidden force. Daniel squinted, noticing that some of the markings weren't natural. They were deliberate. Someone or something had been here. "Stay close," he whispered, gripping a rock in one hand and keeping the other around her waist. The alien woman's glow flickered in response to his voice. Her fingers brushed against his arm, a silent acknowledgement. Daniel realized her power wasn't just offensive. It was sensitive to intention and presence. Whatever had left these tracks might pose a serious threat. Hours passed as they followed the tracks cautiously, moving deeper into a series of smaller canyons. The air was thick and still, yet Daniel sensed movement around them. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and the faintest hum of energy vibrated through the rock walls. He crouched, scanning for predators or raiders, but found nothing immediately visible. Then they saw it, a faint light flickering between two rock pillars. Daniel signaled for the alien woman to stay back. Approaching slowly, he discovered a hidden alcove carved into the canyon walls. Inside, a small group of humanoid figures, alien but intelligent, huddled around a glowing device. The light reflected off their metallic skin, revealing intricate patterns that pulsed rhythmically. Daniel's heart raced. These weren't desert animals. These weren't simple raiders. They were something more advanced, an unknown faction, probably hostile. One of them noticed movement in the sand and glanced toward him, eyes glowing sharply. Daniel froze. He whispered to the alien woman, "Stay calm, don't make a sound." Her glow intensified faintly. He realized she could act as a warning system if needed. One of the humanoids stepped closer to the edge of the alcove. Daniel's mind raced. They could attack at any moment. But he couldn't retreat. The alien woman couldn't run fast enough. He needed a plan. He leaned slightly, whispering, "We have to distract them. Let's create a diversion and get out of here." She nodded, placing her hand lightly on a nearby rock. A faint pulse of energy radiated from her, small but visible, enough to make the nearest humanoids look toward her glow. Using that moment, Daniel grabbed a handful of sand and threw it toward the opposite side, kicking up a cloud that covered their movement. The humanoids hissed and adjusted their stance, scanning the area, but the alien woman's glow distracted them just long enough for Daniel to guide her deeper into a narrow passage between the rocks. The canyon walls closed around them, offering momentary safety. They paused to catch their breath. "You saved us again," Daniel said, his chest heaving. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes soft and unreadable. She murmured in her alien language, which Daniel couldn't understand, but he felt the intent, gratitude, and trust. The hidden presence in the desert was not yet gone. Daniel knew it would follow them if they didn't move quickly. They needed shelter, water, and a vantage point to see if the canyon offered an exit or a safe haven. They pressed on, weaving through the narrow passages, the alien woman leaning slightly against them for support. Her glow pulsed softly with every step, a silent heartbeat that echoed her trust. Daniel realized that her power, combined with his own skills and instinct, made them stronger together. Above, the twin moons continued their arcs, casting soft light across the dunes. Daniel knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges. Predators, raiders, and perhaps the unknown faction they had just discovered. Yet, for the first time, he felt a strange confidence. Together, they had survived storms, predators, and the desert's relentless heat. They had also faced intelligent foes and emerged unscathed. For now, the alien woman's hand brushed against his again, and he felt a spark of hope. The desert was merciless, but Daniel knew one thing with certainty. They would survive together, no matter what awaited them next. The narrow canyon walls cast long shadows under the twin moons. Daniel moved cautiously, supporting the alien woman as they navigated jagged rocks and hidden crevices. Her glowing skin illuminated the path faintly, painting soft blue and lavender hues against the canyon walls. The desert was quiet for a moment, but he knew the hidden faction they had glimpsed earlier was still close. Ahead, the canyon opened into a wider basin. In the center, a strange, crystalline structure jutted from the sand like a shard of frozen sunlight. Its surface shimmered, reflecting the moons in patterns that shifted as Daniel approached. This had to be the source of the strange energy, and the reason the humanoid figures were nearby. "Careful," he whispered to her. "We don't know what's inside." The alien woman's hand brushed his arm, her glow pulsing rhythmically. He realized again that her powers were connected to her emotions, responding to both danger and trust. Together, they moved forward, staying low and alert. As they neared the crystalline structure, the hidden humanoids emerged from the shadows. Their metallic skin gleamed in the moonlight, and their eyes, sharp and amber, locked on Daniel and the alien woman. They raised strange energy weapons, their intent clear: capture or eliminate. Daniel stepped in front of her instinctively. "We don't want trouble," he called out, trying to appear calm. The humanoids hissed, advancing cautiously. But the alien woman raised her hands, and a pulse of glowing energy erupted, throwing sand and small rocks into the air. Sparks of light danced across the humanoids' bodies, stunning them just long enough for Daniel to act. He grabbed a large shard of crystal from the ground, using it to deflect the humanoids' energy blasts. She followed his lead, pulsing bursts of energy in tandem. Together, their combined efforts forced the hidden faction to retreat temporarily, giving them a brief chance to enter the crystalline structure. Inside, the air shimmered with faint light, and the walls were lined with alien inscriptions that glowed softly. Daniel set the alien woman down against a safe alcove. She traced her fingers along the walls, activating hidden mechanisms that revealed a hidden chamber. There, they found what caused the desert's strange disturbances, a repository of alien technology, abandoned but still active. Among the devices were crystalline pods, each containing a dormant alien being. The energy from the structure pulsed in time with the alien woman's glow, revealing that she was somehow connected to this ancient technology. Daniel's jaw tightened. This is why they were here. They wanted this technology, or maybe her. The alien woman's glowing eyes met his. She whispered something in her language, which he didn't understand, but the urgency was clear. She stepped closer to the central pod, her hands glowing brighter than ever. Energy cascaded across the floor, interfacing with the crystals, and the dormant being stirred slightly. Daniel realized the truth. She had a connection to these ancient aliens, and her survival wasn't just about her. It was about the secret she carried. She had been abandoned in the desert to protect or hide that connection. As the hidden faction regrouped outside, the alien woman turned to him, her expression both pleading and determined. Daniel nodded, understanding without words. Together, they would defend the secret, survive the desert, and reveal the true power of humanity's courage and resilience. Energy pulsed from her hands, forming a protective barrier around the crystalline chamber. Daniel readied his weapon, standing beside her. The humanoids burst in, but the combined strength of human ingenuity and alien power was overwhelming. Blasts of light collided, and the air shook with the force of the confrontation. Finally, after an intense struggle, the intruders retreated, leaving the crystalline chamber intact. Daniel exhaled heavily, glancing at the alien woman. Her glow had dimmed, but the strength in her eyes was unwavering. "We survived," he said quietly, his chest still heaving. She nodded faintly, touching his arm. In that moment, Daniel understood something profound. Their survival wasn't just about the desert, the predators, or the hidden faction. It was about trust, resilience, and the bond forged between a human and an alien, one that could change the course of both their destinies. Above, the twin moons cast silver light over the dunes, and the desert, vast and unforgiving, seemed a little less threatening. For the first time, Daniel allowed himself a glimmer of hope. Together, they would navigate the mysteries of the desert, confront new dangers, and uncover truths that could reshape both their worlds. The alien woman's glowing hands brushed his arm, and he felt the unspoken promise between them. They would face whatever came next together,